So, like I said in the last video, the um, project here is to kind of reconstruct knowledge, and he has this method of doubt, okay? Um, he's this method of doubt. And he introduces it briefly in the letter to the dean of faculty, and then into the preface to the reader. So this method of doubt he develops in a book called Methods on Discourse on the Methods, and it's basically he wants to develop a set of principles that'll lead us to this conception of clear and distinct, not like seeing clearly and distinctly, so that we can have knowledge, right? And he lays out very clearly that he's going to apply this method of doubt to two things. Recall from the last video that God exists, and the body and the soul is distinct from the body, right? Obviously, there are just reasons for this. It's important for him as a Catholic that God exists. It's also important that if you believe in something like eternal life after death, that the soul be distinct from the body, because it looks like the body dies, right, and decays. And if the soul and the body are the same thing or connected to each other in a particular way, then it seems like the soul can be corrupted by the body. And it seems like, well, this story about, salvation in the afterlife doesn't make a lot of sense if the soul can die. So there are reasons beyond just like, oh, it's fun to think about these things, that Descartes cares about these problems, okay? So he's in the first meditation, he's actually going to go through and apply this method of doubt, and he's going to talk you through why that's the case. But I want to note here that he talks about a first philosophy, right? The first philosophy, like I said, his project here is start with method of doubt, and then you use principles of reasoning to get to a particular type of understanding that's clear and distinct. This is just epistemology, right? This philosophy of methods that he's talking about is just epistemology. And he also talks a lot of crap about philosophy. It's really interesting. So if you back up a little bit to the preface to readers, where he talks about like how philosophers are just inclined to accept things without really considering whether they're true or not. And so he wants to avoid this problem. He wants to avoid the problem of prejudice that everybody's susceptible to, because we just believe things because our parents did or because our culture does. He also wants to avoid the problem that philosophers have, which is they just believe whatever they want. Or so Descartes says. So in the first meditation, he's going to say, like, look, what is it reasonable for us to doubt? We have to bring in everything, right? So this is why I kind of hinted at this in the last video, right? He's it's what we call an external world skeptic. And he's not actually an external world skeptic. We'll see this because he comes out of, he thinks he solved this problem, but external world skepticism is a type of skepticism that says, like, look, we can't actually know if any of our senses or impressions or understanding of the external world, including our own bodies, so anything outside of our mind, we can't actually know anything about that. So you can either talk about knowledge directly or the justification for knowledge. At the end of the day, it's sort of the same thing, right? You either lack justification for what you take to be true about the outside world, or you can't know the outside world, the external world, directly. There's two ways to conceive of it, but basically amounts to the same thing. We don't know anything about what's outside of our minds. Descartes goes through and says that, like, there's a lot we can doubt, and reasons that we can doubt are we can be dreaming. So he says, look, this isn't just like a fun little exercise to start with doubt. This is a methodology for him. We actually have reasons to think that maybe we are being deceived, right? We could be dreaming. All right, you guys kept bringing up Inception to me the other day. Same thing here, right? We could be fooled. We can be tricked by our senses, right? He gives a couple examples of this throughout the paper or the meditations. The one I think is the clearest example of this is like when he says, like, the sun appears very small Like, it's very, very small in comparison to like the things directly in front of you. Like right now I have a coffee cup that looks really big, but when I look at on the horizon, I kind of see what the sun is doing. Don't look directly at the sun, by the way. It looks really small. But that's an illusion. We know it has to be very large to be visible from as far away as it is, right? So our senses can be fooled. And then he says, like, look, we're actually like not the greatest agents ever conceived in the world. There could be something more powerful than us that could deceive us. Actually, let me say deception here. And he says, like, okay, maybe God's deceiving us. But obviously, like, this can't be the case because God is super duper moral and super duper good, so he wouldn't deceive us. So maybe there's like an evil demon. And he's going to go as if the evil demon is the one doing this. He drops these. And I think that's because, like, later on he's going to talk about why these aren't objections to particular views he has. These particular things aren't objections to views he has. So I think he's kind of saying, like, look, if somebody was actively deceiving us, we'd have to doubt everything we believe, including beliefs about what's going on in our heads. Because these seem like they could be implanted in us, right? Think about if you've ever played Call of Duty Cold War, how like the plot of that game relies on the idea that beliefs and experiences could be implanted in your head, right? Same thing going on here. So this radical method of doubt, we need to doubt everything. That we have a body, that our impressions of the world outside of us are true, that they tell us anything about the objects in the world around us, that we are having a particular mental experience at this time. Look around you. He's saying, like, doubt that your impressions of that, like what you see in your head, are real. And then even things like that we would take to be like definitionally true, like mind independent, like mathematical definitions, you can doubt those too, because that also can just be put in your head. So, right, we start here. Get into the mindset that anything you experience or any idea you have is true. Doubt it.